The movie kicks off with a fun girls' night out, where a group of high school friends, including the main character Brenda, are wandering around the city. Brenda's group of friends, who call themselves the Satins, consists of Rachel, Stella, Francine, Stevie, and Maria. Along with them is Brenda's younger sister, Heather, who is deaf and mute. After their father's passing, Brenda became incredibly protective of Heather, who embodies innocence and vulnerability. As the girls walk around and chat, they get excited discussing Francine's upcoming wedding. The air is filled with laughter and happiness as they share their excitement for their friend's big day. Meanwhile, a dangerous gang called the Scars is also prowling around the same area. The gang, consisting of Jake, Vince, Red, and Fargo, is known for their reckless behavior and involvement in drug dealing. They roam the streets without a care for rules or the safety of others, driving around in Jake's flashy convertible. As Jake and his gang speed through the city, they spot Brenda and her group of friends. Jake, the leader of the Scars, decides to mess with the girls for fun. They recklessly drive toward them, almost hitting the group at a street corner. Heather, unable to hear or speak, falls to the ground in fear, terrified by the near miss. Brenda rushes to help her sister up, furious at the gang for their careless behavior. She yells at them for being so reckless. Jake, realizing his mistake, tries to apologize, but he also attempts to charm Brenda, asking her to spend the evening with him. Brenda, however, is not interested and firmly says no, wanting nothing to do with him or his troublemaking friends. After this close call and Jake's unwanted advances, Brenda and her friends decide to get back at the gang. They come up with a bold plan to steal Jake's convertible while the Scars are distracted. With a mix of excitement and nerves, the girls manage to take the car, driving off and laughing as they go. But they don't stop there, they decide to take the prank further by filling Jake's convertible with garbage. They stuff it with old trash bags, fast food wrappers, and anything else they can find, turning it into a complete mess. Proud of their revenge, they abandon the car in the middle of the street. When Jake and the gang discover what the girls have done, they are furious and embarrassed. Humiliated by the prank, they immediately start plotting their own revenge. Jake, in particular, is determined to get back at Brenda and her friends for humiliating him. One day, as the Scars hang around the school, they cause trouble by harassing another student to show off their power. However, their antics are interrupted by the school principal, who warns them to leave immediately or face the police. Reluctantly, the gang backs off, but it's clear they are far from done with their revenge plans. Meanwhile, inside the school gym, Brenda and her friends are in the middle of a physical training session with their instructor. As they focus on their workout, a boy named Wes shows up, clearly interested in Brenda. He flirts with her, trying to get her attention, but Brenda is unimpressed and brushes him off, focusing on her workout. Things take a turn when Wes's girlfriend, Cindy, storms into the gym and sees him flirting with Brenda. After their workout, the girls head to the locker room. Brenda lags behind for a moment when she notices her younger sister, Heather, who has arrived at the school to see her. Heather, always sweet and thoughtful, smiles and gives Brenda a small gift. Brenda hugs her sister warmly, touched by her thoughtfulness, and asks her to wait while she takes a quick shower. As the gym empties and the area becomes quieter, Red, one of the gang members, shows up. He spots Heather standing alone, and seeing her innocence, decides to approach her. At first, Heather, being too trusting, starts communicating with Red using sign language, not realizing his true intentions. Red plays along for a moment but soon gets too close, trying to take advantage of her. Realizing something is wrong, Heather pushes him away and tries to escape. Before she can get far, Jake, Vince, and Fargo appear, blocking her way. The gang surrounds her, making it impossible for Heather to escape. Terrified and helpless, Heather tries to fight back, but the gang overpowers her. In a horrific act of cruelty, they beat and physically assault her, leaving her in immense pain and fear. Meanwhile, in the locker room, tensions between Cindy and Brenda flare up again. Still upset over Wes, Cindy confronts Brenda, and the argument quickly turns into a fight. The two girls push and yell at each other, but the fight is interrupted when the principal arrives. After their meeting with the principal, Brenda and her friends go to look for Heather, who is supposed to be waiting in the auditorium. However, when they arrive, Heather is nowhere to be found. Panic sets in as they search for her, calling out her name with no response. Eventually, one of the girls stumbles upon the locker room and finds Heather lying unconscious on the floor, battered and bruised. The sight of Heather's broken body shocks the group, and they rush to help her, immediately taking her to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctor informs them that Heather has fallen into a coma due to the severe trauma she endured. Brenda and her mother are devastated, unable to comprehend the horror of what has happened to Heather. Heartbroken and filled with rage, Brenda vows to find the people responsible for hurting her sister. Determined to get justice for Heather, Brenda becomes consumed by thoughts of revenge. Later that night, her friends try to cheer her up by taking her to a local disco, but Brenda is still deeply upset. However, the Scars gang also arrives at the disco, still angry and looking for trouble. When Francine leaves to use the restroom, Fargo spots her and starts harassing her, not caring that she's pregnant. Francine tries to fight him off, and a chaotic fight breaks out. In the struggle, Francine grabs Jake's knife and cuts his face, which allows her to break free from Fargo's grip. Humiliated and bleeding, Jake and the Scars are caught off guard by the girl's defiance, and they decide to retreat. The next day, Brenda is sitting in class, but she can't focus. Her mind is consumed by thoughts of the criminals who hurt her sister. Brenda's teacher, Miss Young, notices that something is wrong and gently asks if Brenda wants to talk, but Brenda, still closed off, brushes her off. As Brenda gets ready to leave the locker room later, Wes approaches her again, trying to get her attention. Before Brenda can respond, Cindy arrives and sees them talking, immediately assuming that Brenda is trying to steal Wes. Cindy starts yelling at Brenda, but this time, Brenda ignores her. However, when Cindy makes a cruel remark about Heather, mocking her, Brenda snaps and the two get into another fight, this time in the classroom. The principal is called again and, fed up with their behavior, suspends both Brenda and Cindy from school. Meanwhile, Vince, one of the Scars, grows uneasy about the situation. Word about Heather's condition is spreading, and Vince is starting to feel guilty. Jake, however, remains calm and continues plotting revenge, particularly targeting Francine after she cut his face. Francine, excited about her upcoming wedding, heads to a store to check on her dress. She's lost in happy thoughts about the future, unaware that the Scars are watching her. As she leaves the store, the gang chases her through an industrial part of the city. Eventually, they corner her. Despite her pleas, Jake, fueled by rage, picks her up and throws her off a viaduct, killing her in a brutal act of violence. Vince, horrified by Jake's actions, realizes he can no longer be part of the Scars. He goes to the hospital to visit Heather, quietly apologizing to her for everything that has happened. However, Brenda arrives and, seeing Vince, immediately confronts him. Filled with rage, she demands to know what he did to her sister. Vince manages to escape Brenda's fury and runs out of the hospital. Later that night, Brenda, now fully consumed by thoughts of revenge, visits a weapons store. She buys a crossbow and bear traps, preparing to take matters into her own hands. Brenda tracks down the Scars to an abandoned warehouse, where she lures Fargo and Red into a deadly trap. She kills Fargo with a crossbow and sets a bear trap that snaps over Red's throat, killing him as well. When Jake returns, he finds his friends dead and becomes enraged. He tries to shoot Brenda but is incapacitated when she traps him and hangs him upside down. Brenda tortures Jake, stabbing him with a hunting knife, but he manages to free himself and attacks her. The fight ends when Brenda douses Jake with flammable paint and sets him on fire.